When it comes to solo open world roaming here in Albion Online, there are a lot of weapons to choose from. In this video, I'm going to give you the best 3 weapons for solo open world roaming. This means roads, black zone, red zones, any of these danger areas. These are going to be your best choices for getting started in these zones roaming by yourself. Now, do keep in mind that this is my personal opinion on these. A lot of these I've tested myself, and there are also a lot of other weapons that can work for solo open world roaming, and I will put them in the honorable mention section at the end of this video. But at the end of the day, you can really make any weapon work, as you have to work around its weaknesses and strengths. It's just the weapons that I put in here right out the gate are already strong for a lot of different reasons when it comes to open world roaming. So that's why I wanted to kind of give you these 3 weapons to start with, and then down the road, if you want to test other weapons or if you get more comfortable with open world roaming, you can start switching to other weapons. Now, the criteria for judging these weapons comes from, number 1 is going to be mobility. So it has to do with getting in and out of fights. The ability to control the flow of a fight is huge in open world, because not only do you want to be able to catch people as well as escape, but sometimes when you're fighting one person, their buddies might show up and it's time to disengage. Some weapons you might be stuck into the fight once you're committed. Other weapons you have enough mobility with the actual abilities on the weapon, not just your boots, to be able to get in and out of the fight, as well as there's different resources such as invis pots, undead cape, assassin jacket. There's a lot of different things you can use to get in and out of these fights to control the flow if it does get hairy and you need to get out of there. The other one is PvP/PvE. So we do talk about how good they are at killing players as well as clearing chests, dungeons, killing open world mobs, because these are big things. Some weapons aren't that good at killing mobs, while others are really good at killing players. So this is something that we will talk about, as well as I do cover all the pros and cons that I have for each weapon. Obviously, there's probably more pros and cons. I can't cover everything, as I am only one person doing my own testing. I do talk to other creators and talk about their opinions on these weapons to kind of chime in so that I can help make this video. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of information in Albion Online, and I can't know every single small detail, so I will do the best I can. So the first thing that we're going to go over is the armors that you're going to want to use for open world roaming, and this is universal. I would recommend these for all of the weapons that I do talk about, as well as when you are solo open world roaming, you can't go wrong with these armor pieces. So this is what I'm working with right here. So first one is going to be assassin jacket. You're going to want to always have assassin jacket when you are solo open world roaming, not only because this invis is really strong at getting out of fights, but the invis can de-aggro mobs. So if you are fighting open world mobs and someone does roll up on you, you can proc the invis and de-aggro the mobs, and you're able to mount up or reassess the situation instead of them dismounting on you and then you're having trouble getting on your mount because all of the mobs are slapping you. It makes a lot of situations easier, and it does not disappear with damage. So if this is one of the first invises you're going to want to use if you are trying to get out, because if they do damage you while this invis is active, they won't reveal you unless they actually have a reveal ability. If you do walk 14 meters away though, you'll be seen, so just keep that in mind. Next one is going to be royal sandals. Now, royal sandals is a big one, and the reason is it's for defenseless rush. Now, what this does is it increases your movement speed and damage, so it's really good for chase and finishing off a kill. On top of that, it does decrease your defense, so you have to be very careful when running in and out. If you are using this in the middle of a fight while you're low health, just know you're about to take more damage. But the big one for this one is it's unpurgeable. Then the reason that is because it's a toggle ability. So this ability can be turned on, and then once it's on, it can be turned off. This is really good because no one can purge you using a fiend count. If you don't know what purge is, it takes away all buffs from a targeted enemy. So if you do proc your run with like soldier boots, like wanderlust or rejuvenating sprint, if someone has this purge and they're in a 9-meter radius of you, they can use this and take away your boot speed. Like, you immediately will lose your boots and now you don't have them anymore. So that is something to keep in mind. The fiend cow is also part of this build. So if you are open world roaming and you're wanting to be on the more PvP side of things, you do want to bring a fiend cow because you do have a lot of catch with it. Obviously, it's a little bit more pricey, but this is, if you want to chase players using any of the mobility weapons we're going to be talking about, this is one of the ones you're going to want to do. The other one you can use is mage cow, as it does have a poison, so it's good for taking out mobs as well as doing damage to enemy players. And force field is really strong to switch into if you are trying to have more control over the fight, as you can push people away and, you know, shoots them for 12 meters. So that's a really good one. The cape that I'm going to recommend is undead cape. Now, I know this is going to be really expensive, so if you are running a cheaper set, I would not run this. Maybe run, like, you could run Thetford, but you could probably run Fort Sterling cape or a Martlock cape. Fort Sterling cape can save you from like a mace W that's going to root you, or Martlock cape could save you in different situations, but I would recommend using a Fort Sterling cape. If you are trying to farm hard, like open world farming, you can use a Thetford cape. Just keep in mind that this might accidentally pull different mobs that you're not ready for. But at the end of the day, if you can get comfortable enough and your funds can get well to run an undead cape, This thing is amazing because once you're at 15% health, you will escape into the realm of the undead, and essentially it turns you invisible for 6 seconds. Decreases all damage and healing you do, but while you're invisible for the 6 seconds, you can use any abilities and no one will see you. Now, there is abilities that will make like different animations, like the glove's E. When it hits the ground, dirt comes up. They will be able to see that, so you just need to be careful with stuff like that, just depending on what weapons you're using. But at the end of the day, yeah, you can use all your abilities while invis like this, so this one is a really good clutch situation to get you out, as well as it's another 6 seconds to get cooldowns. Now, the other boots you can use are leather boots that have refreshing sprint, just to increase your movement speed and cooldown rate. You could use this to have better cooldowns, that's up to you, as well as soldier boots with rejuvenating sprint to give you a little bit more sustain. I do run this with some of the builds that I use, so this is plated boots anyways. You can use any plated boots, so if you don't have soldier boots leveled up, you can use any of them and run rejuvenating sprint just to get that health, as well as toughness for a little bit more survivability. Now, first on our list is going to be battle bracers. So battle bracers are really strong for open world roaming, and there are a lot of reasons why it is really strong. I'm going to show you the abilities right now. Pros for this weapon is going to be it has high mobility. A lot of its abilities that it actually uses gives it high mobility. It has great escape and catch potential, so most of the time when you get into a fight with these, you have the ability to get away at any moment during the fight, unless they are running the same weapon as you, as well as if people are running away, most of the time they're not going to be able to get away from you unless they have like a different way, like a portal to get out of, or they can zone into a new zone. They'd have to have something extra to be able to get away from you, because most of the time this weapon will be able to catch up to them. It has strong damage for PvP and PvE activities, so it's really good at killing mobs, as well as really good damage against players. So the assassin jacket and the E is a really good execute in a way, because when you do hit that 4-meter radius on the dive, it does 1066 damage, as well as you do get the damage stack from the ambush. So that one is really good for nuking players if you do have your E up. Cons for this weapon though is it has energy issues and prolonged fights. So if you are doing PvE activities like clearing a dungeon, or you're doing Avalonian chests in the Avaroads, you do need to be careful, because your energy is going to get absolutely nuked over time, because it's just an energy monster. But all the gloves, they just eat a ton of energy, and the primary attacks on this weapon are essentially non-existent. So when you are in a PvP interaction, you're not going to be using your primary attacks, because you have to be so close to the target, and most of the time you're trying to maneuver or get out of the way of certain abilities. And there are a lot of weapons that do a lot more primary attack damage, so a lot of times being that close to them is putting you at a disadvantage, because the gloves primary attacks don't really do a lot of damage. So that's one of the other cons for this. Now, for the food, I recommend running Dust Hole Crab Omelet for this, and they did just recently do a rework on this, and it helps kind of like suppress the energy uses of this. But what it does is increases your cast speed, which we don't care about for these, but your cooldown rate is 9.5%, and it reduces your energy cost by 11.3% for 30 minutes. Now, this will help you with energy problems with this build. Now, if you're having really bad energy problems and you really want to cover it, you could run some energy potions, as these do have a cooldown of 1:30, and they'll give you 70% of your max energy back. I would only recommend that if you're really running like in a small group. If you are running by yourself, I 100% recommend Invisibility Potion for every single weapon that we're going to be going over. Invisibility Potion will turn you invisible for 7 seconds. Do keep in mind though that if someone is attacking you, if like the bear paws hit you or a curse staff, damage will reveal you, so you need to be careful when doing this. So one of the best ways to use Invispot would be to at least be at a distance from your opponent where they can't do damage from you as soon as you drink it. If you drink the Invispot right on top of your opponent, a lot of times they can just hit you and your Invispot is worthless. It's been multiple times where people will drink it right on top of me, and I just use like an AoE ability and they immediately lose it. But the best way to use this is going to be to proc your run and then drink the Invispot, because if you use abilities while invisible with this thing, it will reveal you. So if you proc your run, then drink the Invispot, you can run while invisible using your boots. So it's a good getaway method, a strategy that you can use, as well as you can use it to, once you go invisible, you can juke out your opponents and run a different direction. Sometimes they might go the same direction, sometimes they don't, but I will always recommend running this. Now, when it comes to the abilities for running the battle bracers, we're going to have the second Q, the first W, and obviously the E. For these, unless you're running 6.1, you're not going to have Catch Me If You Can passive ability, which is essentially when you use your W, you're going to get damage reduction as well as CC resistance. So it's really good for getting away. But it's all about this Q. So all you do is just hit Q. This E can help you get away. As you can see, all these abilities are mobility. They all move in one direction or another. So the reason this is so strong is because you can use your run, you can Q, you can W, and you just keep running, and it just helps you get out of situations a lot faster. If they don't have any mobility abilities, they're not going to be catching you. It's so easy to get away with these. As you can see though, the mana is like you know, we've only used a couple abilities, but we're already 1/4 or like 1/3 out of mana. So just have to be a little bit careful, because when you're fighting mobs or fighting players, you're going to be spamming these abilities over and over again. And if your energy gets this low that quickly, at one point it's going to get pretty dicey, just because of how much, like, we're already at half mana and we've only done 3 rotations. So you just got to be careful, especially when clearing mobs. If you're clearing any kind of mobs or somewhere that you can be dove, you will be using your abilities a lot. Now that is the first one. The second one we're going to be talking about is the one-handed spear. Now the one-handed spear is, we'll go over the pros and cons. The pros are it's a jack of all trades. So it's essentially jack of all trades, master of none. It can really do everything that you want in a solo open world roaming weapon. It's good sustain, so it does have a leech on its abilities, as well as when you're running roast or roasted pyramid snapper, which I recommend running either one of these when you are running the spear, just so you can have more sustain. It has decent damage, as well as it has strong slows for catching. It has really good catch potential. For the cons, a lot of weapons out DPS the one-handed spear, so you do have to be careful taking full-on face engagements with people. Like if you're going up against a dagger or a curse staff or any of that, you can't be just face checking them. You just need to be really careful when it comes to that stuff. And it has a higher skill ceiling, so it's going to take a lot longer to master this weapon, but once you get it down, it can really shine in every situation that you're having to handle. So what we're going to do is, I brought 2 spears just because I wanted to show you that the tier 5 spear doesn't have, it's missing the last 2 abilities. So this one doesn't have these 2. This one has impale as well as harpoon. Impaler has a 50% slow for 4.73 seconds, has a really good catch if someone's trying to run from you, as well as harpoon actually pulls them towards you. When it comes to deflecting spin, you'll increase your damage resistance and reflect 100% of the damage you take as physical damage. This doesn't negate the damage, it just reduces it, and then it reflects it all back at them. You have cripple, which purges all movement speed buffs. So if someone does have a movement speed buff, or a sword has their stacks, you can essentially rip those from them, and they get a 15% slow, as well as you get a movement speed bonus and 25% damage increase as well. Enter focus, you're not really going to be using, it's a mobility option. You won't really be running this in open world, but it can be used in some situations to increase your damage and the duration of your crowd control effects, maybe for catch if you are in a group. And Forest of Spears is usually for PvE activities, so like clearing dungeons and whatnot. But if you are doing Black Zone, I usually just rock Impale, but we're going to put these on right now. We want to use Roast, because whenever you deal damage, you can steal 9.45% health, or you can use Roasted Pyramid Snapper. And what this does is it increases your health, as well as gives you a health steal. Now the health steal is a little bit lower, but you get increased health. So you get 9.45 increased health. And in a lot of these fights, more health will be the reason, the make or break for winning the fight. So for this, you have your Impale, which is a spear that comes out of the ground. You're going to want to use your first Q. You're going to want to use the W is really where the spear shines in the jack of all trades, because all of these can be used for different situations. Like harpoon can be used for catch, impale can be used for catching as well as finishing kills. Deflecting spin can counter like bolt casters. If they use their E on you and you have your deflecting spin, you can absolutely nuke their health, because you get a damage reduction on yourself and it does the damage right back to them. Cripple can be used against swords, and Forest of Spears, again, PvE activities. This is why it's the jack of all trades. It has a lot of W's that can handle different situations. And then we have E, which is our mobility option. This is one of the reasons why this is good for open world roaming, because this option can help you get in and out of fights. And you're going to want to run Life Leech, because you get 15% health steal. So this helps you with the sustain that stacks with the roast. So what we can do is, you know, whichever ability that we want to use, we're just going to keep Impale on. But you usually use these Qs and they give you stacks, as well as it has a 10% slow. So if you hit someone with it, it does slow them down. But it increases your physical normal attack damage. So as you get 3 stacks from these, so do we have like something we can hit over here? Actually, we can go to, let's just actually go over to the training zone. And I'll show you guys the stacks that they do. And we're not going to put a roast on, but just know that it will heal as well. So when we are smacking, we are getting 11 health per. If we hit 2 of these targets, we do get 2 stacks. Now we're getting 16 per. And then now we have our 3 stacks. Now we're getting 19 per. And then Impale is like an AoE ability. We still have our Qs. And then our E, which is Reckless Charge, does damage based on the amount of spirit charges we have on us. So when we have 3 charges like this, we do 832 damage. This can be used as an execute. So in a way, you could act like it's kind of like the Bloodletter. You get all your 3 stacks, you go invis, you get your 10 stacks up, and then right before the spirit charges in, you do Reckless Charge. But this is where the movement comes in. So it does have a 13-meter range, so you can get out of range of like a purge or something and then use your run. If you are using a purgeable boot, these ones are unpurgeable, the Royal Sandals. That's why I like using them. And then, you know, we have the distance for that. So that's what that mobility option right there is what makes it a lot better in open world, just because it can help you get out in and out of different situations. And the cooldown isn't that bad. It's only 18.4 seconds. I think it's like 20 seconds. I think I might have cooldown reduction on. Now, the third and final weapon on our list is going to be the Bloodletter. Now, for the Bloodletter, you can either run a Mist Collar or a Torch, and you're going to run Eel Stew with this one, as Eel Stew does give you increased damage and cooldown rate for the weapon. So this is really good for the Bloodletter. I would recommend running this. You could run a Roast with it if you wanted to, as well as like an Omelet. An Omelet can work for all these builds because just increased cooldown is good all around, just because more abilities the better. When it comes to the Bloodletter though, this is a high mobility weapon. So we'll talk about the pros first. It's a high mobility. It has high DPS output in PvP. It's a very scary weapon to 1v1 against, as it does have a lot of damage output. It has great escape as well as catch potential. You can catch people really easily with it, as well as you can engage and disengage the fight. And it is an execute weapon. Once they get below 40% health, you can essentially execute them. And when you do stack this with the Assassin Jacket and execute out of Assassin Jacket with full stacks, it will do a crap ton of damage. For the cons though, it does have trouble clearing mobs. So if you are trying to do a lot of open world PvE activities, this weapon will struggle a little bit with killing mobs, as it really relies on its abilities to do a lot of damage, but when it comes to mobs, its primary attacks take forever to kill some of them. So it's just something you got to look out for. And another con is it's really reliant on its E to execute and finish kills. So a lot of the times you are trying to save this E so that you can finish off a kill, or a lot of people will try to bait this out. They get a lot more comfortable once they know you've used this ability, because it does have a little bit of a higher cooldown. So you do need to be a little bit more careful when running that. It does have a 30-second cooldown, and once it's used, they know for 30 seconds that you're not going to have it. So when it comes to the abilities that we have for this weapon, you can still run this setup or a Mage Cowl. It's completely up to you. Mage Cowl would probably benefit more from this one, as it does have a lot of single target DPS build. The goal for the Bloodletter when you are PvPing is to get them down into execute range, so Mage Cowl can help you do that with the poison. We have the Q, which is a movement ability in itself. So right there, it kind of acts like the glove's Q with its distance. Lunging stabs, you can use it for the fight, or you can use it as a getaway option. And then we do have the spinning blades, which if you do hit mobs or anything, or like a player, you do get a movement speed bonus, and it lasts a decent amount of time, as well as it does stack with the boots. When it comes to the W though, you can use dash if you want. You also have Shadow Edge, which throws a knife. This one's more for catch. And then Chain Slash is more for fights. So the other one that you would want to use is dash. So you can dash to a position, you can lunge, and you can press Qs. Now this has really good mobility, as you can have 3 abilities that are all mobility options. This W can be used in PvP, as it does increase damage by 15% for 4 seconds. And its cooldown is decent. Like it has an 18... Well, this one has 18.12 seconds, so I must have another cooldown reduction on me. But it's decent. Like this one can be used for gatherers too, as well as the gloves. I'd recommend both for gatherers if you wanted. They do have really good mobility options. But again, all the armors are going to be the same, and it's just you can use leech or you can use deep cuts. Either or works for this one. But that is going to be the top 3 weapons for solo roaming that we're going to be covering. Now there are some honorable mentions that I didn't talk about in this video, and those are going to be bows, quarterstaffs, and battle axe / bear paws, both of those. So I didn't mention any of those weapons, and as well as there's like other weapons that have really good mobility, like the one-handed mace, but some of them just lack in DPS or lack in PvE, or you know, some of them just, there's a lot of different things about them. They can work. Like bow is a really good weapon. I just didn't cover it in this video. I just wanted to do top 3. So if your weapon, or if you think there is a weapon that has a higher mobility, make sure to leave it in the comments and we can talk about it. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of weapons that can work open world. I just wanted to give 3 weapons that I know are really strong, and when it comes to mobility and seeing them in open world, you know that they're going to have a lot of control of the fight and be able to get in and out of situations very easily. Now that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this solo open world roaming weapon guide. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video, and I'll see all of you in Albion Online.